This podcast contains strong language and examples of real-life scenarios that some may find disturbing. It is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Jason Kelly. This is a Virtus House Kennel Kast. We are back just off the Graham Pom Ellis podcast 002. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We've got something special here for you. We've got the Dirty Bearded Pilgrim, Andy White, and this is kind of like a thank you to you guys. So it's just coming up on Christmas, and this is my gift to you. All right, on with the show. Andy, welcome to number 3.
Cheers, Jez.
If you want the whole breadth of Andy's military career, go over to Zero Limits podcast. They kind of did a very comprehensive story on Andy. But for this one, we are going to concentrate on his time as a dog handler.
I'm a little bit of an instant newbie. I've just realised you can actually put a link in your bio, so I'll chuck the podcast link up there, Zero Limits.
Yeah, cool. What they kind of really didn't touch on is that Stone, through his handler Andy, got more bites than a zombie apocalypse while they were in. So we're going to talk about the beginning, the middle and the end of his time as a dog handler.
Sounds good.
All right, as with Graham, bit of a twang to that voice. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I did time over with the Brits. Did 14 years in the British Army. Got to a stage where I wasn't happy doing the job I was doing. Needed a change, and I was in Iraq, and I met up with an Aussie, and he said, yeah, they do a lateral transfer program in Australia. So I looked into that, and yeah, the rest is history, really. I looked into that in 06, came over in 07, did selection in 08 for SASR.
Okay. So 14 years, like not a small breadth of time in itself.
No, and again, I don't regret it at any time. It's definitely been a great move for me and my family. And Australia is great, it's a land of opportunity, I suppose. And I definitely consider myself an Australian Pom.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So when you are doing the lateral transfer, was SASR on the cards, or was that once you got here?
Mate, I didn't even know there was an Australian SAS.
Okay.
I did SF selection in the UK. I passed the selection, and I didn't touch on it too much on my last podcast because there just wasn't a lot of time. So we didn't really get to talk about it. It was for the Special Reconnaissance Regiment. I did the first course in 05, like I say, passed selection, got onto Camp 2, what they call it. I got about 5 months into the 6-month course, and they failed me for my close target reconnaissance team leader ship skills. I was gutted, mate, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
But I was invited back on the next course, so I went back on the next course, and got pretty much to exactly the same place. Just going on to the final exercise, and my wife's appendix burst. So she ended up in hospital. I went back to Germany to take care of her. She was in a coma and whatnot. So as soon as she came out of the coma, we had 2 kids at this stage. As soon as she came out of the coma, I was sent back to Iraq again when I met the Aussie. So that's the story behind it. I just wanted to set that straight. Especially with all stolen valor going on. I don't want not Saskant to pull me up.
I'm sure someone's checking your medals right now.
I'm sure they are.
So you come out, regular army.
I went to Singo, mate.
Yeah.
Went to Singo. The Australian product, the guys and the girls, they're great. I was just disappointed with the School of Infantry at the time. I'm sure it's changed now. I've not been back, but it was very old. There was very little experience at the school operationally. And it felt like a bit of a dumping ground for a lot of old people. But I think it's changed now, definitely.
Okay. So I don't want to stick on it too long, but how long were you at Singo for?
Too long. Yeah. So like I said in the other podcast, I put in for selection as soon as we had the first course come through that I taught on, and there was some SAS guys on it, and I was like, I didn't realise there was an SAS. Okay, so that's my ticket out of Singo. I put in for it to the CO at the time was Franklin. He said, no, you've got to give 3 years back to the school. I said, yeah, no worries. So I kept training, did me psych, which I failed, funny enough. I failed me psych, but personality suitable, apparently.
Not funny to me, I know. So.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, I kept training, did me medical, the psych and stuff, and that was just before Christmas. The CO changed out in January, so after Christmas leave, I went into the next CO, who was actually Bones Egan, the next SAS guy, and said, yep, here's me app. And he's like, okay, how long you been here? And I said, 3 years. He said, yeah, sign off, no worries. And yeah, that was me. But yeah.
Classic Andy.
Yeah. Who dares wins, mate?
Yeah, indeed. So come over to Perth, do selection, get through, first go?
Yep, came over in 08, did selection, straight onto the Rio. And,
awesome.
Yep, into the squadron, end of 09, one squadron.
How did you find that, being a POM coming into... was that held against you or did it work for you?
Bit of both.
Okay.
I think... I know coming onto the selection as a POM, you're not going to be the grey man, so you just got to own who you are, and I'm definitely not a grey man anyway.
Yeah.
And I made sure that I knew the Australian national anthem inside out, back to front, and all of the verses, not just the 3 that are used nowadays or 2 that are used nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I was going to get picked on for that, so yeah, it's just I owned it.
Yeah, just part of it. All right, so you get through Rio, quite a long Rio cycle. So then you get to a squadron at what year?
I went to one squadron in 09.
09.
End of 09, yeah. And that was my real... Well, we had obviously interactions with the dogs on Rio.
Yeah.
So during target prosecution continuum, they come down and the dog handlers integrate with you, so you're used to working around the dogs, combat survival and your resistance to interrogation stuff. Funny enough, we got introduced to the dogs then when we were hooded and they were barking in our faces and whatnot. And
back when they were allowed to do that?
Yeah. But my real first exposure was in one squadron. I went to A Troop, so we had Cujo, and B Troop at the time had Cougar, the Dickens Medal recipient.
Yep.
So yeah, my first exposure was stepping over Cougar and getting a nip on the ankle for Cujo, and getting a nip on my ankle for being around him, really.
Yeah.
He was the old salt in the troop.
Just so everyone's aware, obviously there was a massive evolution in the dogs. So back in the early days, they were more kind of land sharkish than they ended up being.
Yeah, 05.
Yeah.
That was in the start,
Yeah. So Cougar and Cujo, so 2 little weapons there. What did you think? Did you think as soon as you saw him, you go, hey, is that something I could do? Or did you just kind of go, oh, I'll just focus on being an operator? No,
at that stage, I had no intention of doing a dog handler's course. I just wanted to be a shooter. I didn't really know enough about the dogs at that stage, really, other than that they got in the way in CQB.
Yep.
But at that stage, as a shooter, you're just concentrating on being number 1 on the door, cracking that door, going through the doorway, and that's all you're focused on. So your mind isn't about other stuff. You want to go through the door and do that part yourself. So you're not really thinking about how can we employ dogs, how can we do this smarter. You just want to get amongst it.
Yeah, sure.
That only came later for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll cut to the chase. So you're spending plenty of time in one squadron, learning how to be part of the team. Yep.
Yeah, for my whole career, really, I was in one squadron, apart from a year in OSS when I taught in the CQB cell.
Okay.
But yeah, I went 09, end of 09, went to one squadron. We ended up in Thailand. We didn't take dogs, obviously, for Aquis reasons, and we were due to deploy, so the dogs stayed back. Cougar's handler came over with a broken leg, so he couldn't work the dog back at home anyway. So he just came over for let's just call it a piss trip.
Yep.
So
okay,
we started training in 2010, ready for the fighting season in Afghan.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So I know I'm kind of skipping through this, but obviously this is a dog podcast, so I'm trying to get to the dogs. So 2010. Just because I know you and I know kind of roughly what happened, bit of a hectic trip.
Yeah, so quite early on in August, so I think we deployed end of June or something, quite early on in August, in the trip. So Friday the 13th of August, we were ambushed. Trooper Jason Brown was killed, unfortunately, and it was a pretty shitty time.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I kind of got an inkling of what I wanted to specialise in within the regiment.
Okay.
There's a number of different streams you can specialise in: JTAC, sniping, and obviously dogs is another one. And that was probably a reason for me to look at dogs. And again, dogs aren't infallible. They make mistakes. And a good example was later on when I was a dog handler. We cleared this compound in Orchard, and I was sitting under a tree having cleared it. And I heard rustling up in a tree, and we knew it was bad. It was a bad compound. And I looked up and I could see a face. And my instinct was straight away to shoot the fucking guy out of the tree, because he's hiding in the tree. He's a bad guy, and he's probably got AKs, and that's been seen time and time again.
Yep.
My instinct was initially to shoot him, so put my gun up into the tree, took the safety catch off, ready to shoot the guy, and then just that thought in the back of my mind, hey, it might be a kid hiding who's scared. So I didn't. We dragged this guy down. He did end up being a Talib, and he was arrested. So dogs aren't infallible.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying, but. Yeah, back to the reason why I did it. Obviously, I think it might have been a different situation on Friday the 13th had we had a dog. I think there's a huge potential there that the dog would have picked up on the scent if the wind was right. On the three guys waiting in ambush for us, the wood was really, really thick, but they were quite close to the edges. So I think the dog would have, high chance of smelling them out.
Yeah, okay.
And potentially saved Jason's alive.
Yeah.
Don't want to talk what ifs, but that was my thought process afterwards, and what kind of made me go down the dog route.
Yeah, okay. All right. So obviously that plants a seed in your mind. Do you have much exposure to the dogs on that trip?
From that point on, yeah. So
Okay.
I worked with Cougar and Cujo's handlers, because obviously we had a compound down in TK, which we go down and do, explosive MOE, just do hit outs, training serials, and the dog team were always down there on the off-rotary period. Anytime they had a chance to train the dogs, they'd be down there. So after that time, I kind of hit up the lead handler at the time, Sergeant G.
Yeah.
And he's corporal at the time, actually, Corporal G and Corporal J. And went down training, just watching what the dogs were doing and seeing if it was something that I wanted to get involved in. I didn't only just do the training; I did a little bit of husbandry as well. Just cleaned up the kennels.
Is that how it works? You kind of show interest, get involved, and then they kind of feel you out from there.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way feeling out process from the handlers to see if you've got the commitment and the hard, the work ethic to do all the hard work.
Yeah.
Dog handling kind of attracts two people or two types of operators: the hard-working ones and the posing ones. I'm probably somewhere in the middle.
A bit of both.
A bit of both. But it's definitely a two-way feel-out process. And those that turn up and do the work, but don't like the hard work and getting covered in shit, then it's probably not for them. And they realise that pretty soon on and don't go on to do the dog handling course. Or some do, and don't turn out to be the best handlers.
Okay. So obviously you're helping out with them. You're still an operator in the team.
Yep.
So your workload doubled, or was it not too bad? Or
it wasn't too bad on the trip because I was just doing OJTs, and I think they were breaking me in gently. So they didn't call me out every time they went training. They were just watching me out on the ground. You can't be worried about your weapon skills, your CQB, your position in the team. You've got to concentrate on the dog. So all of that CQB stuff, the weapon handling, is just got to be done in the subconscious mind.
Okay.
Just so you can consciously watch and make sure the dog's doing the right thing in the right place. You're in the right place for that next evolution or next door or whatever it might be.
Yep.
They were watching me out on the ground as well, just to make sure that I was up to the task.
Yeah. Okay. And so obviously started interacting with the dogs. They're quite a dominant force, the dogs, especially at that time. They were kind of a bit bitey.
Yeah.
How did that come? How did you feel about that? Like, did you go, like, were you comfortable, or did you go, oh,
I was comfortable with Cujo.
yeah,
Cougar fucking terrified me.
Yeah.
I won't lie. He was he'd come for a pat, but he'd have his hackles up. He'd put his head between your legs and growl at you just for a fucking pat. I'm like, come on, mate, really?
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a pat, and he's like, don't stop, cunt. Oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, he did. Initially, he terrified me.
that was his whole career too. He never stopped doing that.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
You're right. But he was an awesome dog. Honestly, he's just phenomenal. He just loved to bite.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about later with Stone, he was a lot more towards the odor stuff. He still, don't get me wrong, he still loved to chew, but he was more inclined for the pizza.
Yeah.
But Cougar, he was a weapon. Cujo was a weapon, and it sold it for me when there was a guy hiding. Well, I've talked about in my other podcast, hiding behind a berm, and I was coming around a quarter in the berm, or pie in the berm as we call it, and Cujo come flying around and started biting this guy who was trying to shoot him with an AK. And had I come round, it could have been potentially two-way gunfight.
Yep.
As it was, he was more. They hate dogs. Afghans hated dogs, so he was more concerned with the dog biting his arm than he was with me.
Okay.
So it just enabled me to put that guy down, stop the dog being shot, and just giving me that extra couple of seconds to make that decision and aim correctly.
Yep. At the end of the day, that's kind of what they're there for, aren't they? They're there to get the bad guy to look down or to be too busy worrying about the dog, so they take their thought process off you. Is that right?
For a number of reasons, mate. They're non-lethal interdiction. So you've got your target, which it's him, running off target, no weapons, you can't shoot him. So you can use that dog to stop that guy.
Yeah.
That's non-lethal interdiction. You can use it for force protection, so pushing down through a wood line towards a compound or wherever. You can send the dog out front, and he's using his nose to find buried IEDs or whatever, or people waiting and hiding. They're multi-role.
Yeah. Okay, so 2010 rolling on, you're starting to get involved with the training. The boys are watching you out on the ground. What happens from there?
So we finished the trip. I went back to Perth and pretty much straight away started the dog course. So I had Corporal J teaching me for a while and Mario from the RAF teaching me.
Yep.
And again, he's a strange cat, but he's a bloody awesome dog liaison officer and trainer of dogs.
Yep.
I know there's conflicting opinions on Mario and his training, but for me, he was great.
Yeah.
And he helped me with Stone and helped me get what I needed from Stone at the time. And we were deploying within a few months, so Stone had to be operational ready. Obviously, we've got minimum level of operational. I can't remember, MLOC, I think we called it.
Yep.
And operational ready. So we needed to get Stone as operationally focused and ready as we could. And Mario helped me, with that. So I respect him a lot for his hard work, even though he's a fucking useless admin nightmare. But he's a great guy, and he's all over his dog stuff. Corporal J, now he's like the Caesar Milan of the SOCOM world in Australia.
Indeed.
And I'll say this from the outset is my successes with Stone aren't due to me; they are due to Corporal J, Corporal G, or Sergeant G now, yourself, Jace, and Mario. Just the hard work and the expertise that you put into it. There's so many dog handlers out there, operated dog handlers, that think they're the font of all knowledge. I know only one, or maybe even two. Again, I haven't worked with them all. I know you've got Horse. He was a great dog handler. And other guys like, I won't say his name on the line, but also 3 Squadron, you've got Dono VC, he was awesome.
Yep.
I didn't work with them guys overseas, so I can't comment too much, but I know if you've got 5 dog handlers, you've got 5 different opinions how to fucking train that dog. Me personally, I'd always look at Corporal J or my DLO, and they'd always put me in the right direction in training. And if we found something out on the ground, something that was happening that the dog hadn't seen before, we'd come back and we'd train that. So for instance, we sent my dog off on someone, he's picked up a shovel and he's batting me dog away with a shovel. We'd not seen that before. So we came back and we trained that. And I think that might have been with you, Jace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, I had Pete was my dog instructor in the RAF, believe it or not, and so for the time period, he was the instructor.
Is that his name, Pete?
Pete Mario.
What a weird name for a black fella.
Well, it's not his native name, but that's what everyone calls him.
No, he's a good lad.
And I think a lot of my love for dogs, for the industry, and that came from him because he was super passionate back then. Absolute, you could tell he was admin nightmare, and he was that the whole way through. But as far as dogs went, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
and,
he did.
And
the good thing with Mario is, Pete. The good thing with Pete was he knew how to get something quick.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of time getting Stone ready for this trip. So yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
And to be honest, in hindsight, it was good that we did have him because obviously the next trip, 2011, both Cujo and Cougar were injured. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will. Let's not jump ahead. I don't want to miss any. So you come back from the 10 trip.
Yep.
You start working more with the boys, going OJTs. Was there a proper dog course, or was it kind of, because it's early days, so there's not really a doctrine in place?
No, there wasn't. So I know early days when Horse and others went through their course. It was run by the RAF, I think, or the MPs, and it's pretty much a husbandry course. This is how you brush your dog and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't very operational focused.
Yeah.
So once these guys did the course and they're like, okay, that's how you teach it at the RAF or the MPs or whatever it is. This is what we need to teach now in regards to, yes, we'll keep some of this, but some of it can go, and we need to insert some TTPs, tactics with the dogs, and come up with some SOPs. And they did that. And so by the time I got to my course in 2010, end 2010, that was pretty much where it started to kind of get all put together.
Yep.
So I did a lot of the initial stuff, forced retrieve, husbandry, kind of basic mechanics with Mario. And then when I didn't take any leave, but when the guys came back off leave, because their dogs were in Aquis, right? So they had to come back and sit there for 3 weeks. 3 months. When they came back off leave, they started teaching me the tactics and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it was an 11-week course. I might be slightly wrong. You might obviously be in there teaching on them. You might know. But it was between a 7 or 11-week course.
Yeah, it pushed out a lot once it kind of started formulating into a proper doctrined course.
Yep.
But I think those early ones were around 10 weeks. I think, something like that. So just you and Stone, or did they kind of? Was there a few of you?
I think there was two. A guy from 2 Squadron. I think there was 2.
Yeah.
Me and another guy. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do know who you're talking about. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he's still in, so we won't
he's still
mention
in.
his name. Yeah. So you would have seen Stone, and then you're seeing Cougar, and you're seeing Cujo, and you're seeing the other handler's dog. Are you seeing a variation in the dog and the training?
Huge variation. So with Stone, when we were in Afghan at the time, Stone was brought over from East Coast or the South Coast, I think. And,
East Coast.
Yeah, 3 Squadron had a quick look at him, and they're like, nah, fucking lemon, don't want him. So they cut him away. Don't get me wrong, he was big, and he was gangly looking fucker.
Yep.
So he was kind of turned down by 3 Squadron. I don't know what test they did on him, but they didn't want him. So we came back, and Corporal J put him through his paces and said, nah, he's good to go. And again, I don't claim, even now, after, a number of trips with the dog and time on team with the dog and just training back here, I don't class myself as a dog handler expert. I obviously class myself as an operator handler.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't class myself as an expert. And last time I handled a dog was 2013, so I've probably forgotten a lot of stuff. So
yeah.
All I had to listen to was my DLOs and people like Corporal J and Corporal G. So he said he's good to go. And that was enough for me.
Yeah. Yep. So you do that course. Are you guys on team, or are you getting ready to go away again?
Yeah, so that stage, you do pretty much 6 months on team, and I can talk about Nike's changed. 6 months on team, and then 6 months overseas in Afghanistan. So that's 6 months on team. You'd just be training for Afghanistan because, you know, it was still excellent training for anything that came up on team, whether it be overseas or at home. The only difference is the TTPs would maybe, depending on where you go, either speed up or slow down.
Sure.
So yeah, it was good training. So we integrated Stone after the course into the squadron training, and found out. And again, we were still training him because, you know, you don't just do a course and you're good to go and the dog's good to go. It's a continual evolution of training you and the dog. And like we spoke about on ops, it's you go out and you'll see something and he'll see something new, and that in his Rolodex memory. So you'll have to come back and train that. So he does that, and, you know, he knows what to do next time.
Yep.
So it was definitely all throughout my career with the dog was just train, and, you know, learn new things.
Yep.
So we found out pretty quickly Stone was excellent on his nose. He, you know, I'm sure people out there have heard the analogy with the pussy and the pizza. A bite dog wants the pussy, or fucking I do as well, to be honest, but pussy or the pizza. If you can't get a pussy, you're going to go for the pizza. So if you don't get the bite, then they're going to go for the odor, is the, I suppose, the analogy.
Yeah.
But Stone would switch within a heartbeat, where some more
bite-orientated
dogs. Yeah, thanks for that. Would not switch so easy. You should have to sit the dog down and chill him out and give him a water and whatever, just to calm him down a little bit prior to going and doing the odor search or whatever. But Stone literally would go from a bite to odor straight away, or odor to a bite. Dogs aren't stupid. They can hear the pitch in the helicopter blades change as we're slowing down for the 1 minute call, and they would get excited. Their ears would be up. They'd be looking. They know they're getting ready to land, and that was the same when you come to approach a compound. They know they're going in. They know they're potentially going to get a bite. So it's hard to get them to do a point of entry search. Use them to use their nose if we didn't have an EOD dog. Yeah. But Stone, no issues whatsoever. Whether on a lead or off leash, he was good on his nose, and he would switch really quick.
Yeah, he was. Had a cracking nose.
Yeah, he did.
So, how is the squadron feeling about, well, dogs in general, but then you guys as a team?
Dog handlers, they get a bit of a hard rap within the squadron, because unless you've done a dog course and you've been down at the kennels, or even done time down the kennels, I don't think you realise just how hard it is. And I don't say that's poor me, because it's not. You do it knowing that it's going to be hard work. So my point is, you're in first. You're cleaning the kennels. You're taking the dogs out. You're exercising the dogs. You're putting them away. You're going back. You're doing your own training with the troop. Then you're like, oh, I'm just going to do some dog stuff. Oh, just going to do some dog stuff. You know, when there's training or work to be done at the troop, but you've got to train your dog. So you finish your troop, or you finish training your dog. You go back, work with the troop, and then at lunchtime, just going to do some dog stuff. So you're down there again at lunchtime, working the dog. Back to do some troop stuff, and then you're back down in the afternoon to do more dog stuff prior to feeding your dog and putting them back in the kennel, or working them, during the period of darkness. Because again, dogs won't automatically go from training through the day to working at night. They don't fucking like it. So they've got to be given that training. Or that's my experience anyway. So yeah, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say animosity, but it was a piss take. They would say, oh, just going to do some dog stuff. But there was so much work involved in keeping your personal skills up and your dog skills. It wasn't funny. But when you're overseas on ops, the dogs were absolutely idolised. And if you had a shit dog, then you were known as a shit cunt. Because you didn't put the work in. So whilst they took the piss, they definitely appreciated the hard work you did and the product at the end of it, which is overseas with your dog. Yep.
It kind of never ended, did it? That little battle between the squadron and the cell.
No.
You guys were always kind of getting called out.
But the problem is, mate, if you get the wrong person on the dog, then I'm just going to do some dog stuff. I'm going down the dog cell for a brew. Yeah. So I think the troops and the troop patrol commanders and sergeants and whatnot were just trying to keep the dog handlers honest. Yeah. So you can't just disappear down the dog cell and then stay there. You've got to come back for training. So I think, and definitely when I was, troop sergeant last year, the year before last, I was the same with my dog handlers because I knew that they were working hard.
Yeah.
I also knew that there's the ability there to stay away from palletizing drills or whatever fucking shit Bob came up with.
Yeah.
You can leave that name in there.
Yeah. All right.
The dogs were loved, mate.
Yeah.
And, you know, regardless of squadron, regardless of dog, if your dog worked outside the wire and got results, they were just part of the team. And you see it in the photographs, in the fat ladies. I mean, I took Stone in the fat ladies, and he was, I think he went dressed as Superman in a dog costume.
Yeah.
And I think in some of the pictures, the 2 squadron, they had dogs in there as well. So they are definitely part of the team. It is a pack, and they definitely are part of that pack mentality. Now and again, they've got to be shown that they're not the alpha.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are definitely classed as an operator and loved by the guys.
Would they always go out, or was it job kind of
job specific?
Yeah.
So if it was a helicopter job and you weren't expecting to get off the helo, you probably wouldn't take them. You might just in case.
Yeah.
It depends on weight on the helos. If it was a clandestine job or something in the mountains where you're just going to climb up a hill and sit there and look, you wouldn't take the dog. But if you're expecting to go through green belts, villages, compounds, then the dogs would 100% go to the point where the doggies would go out on come the end 2013, the end, one of the last Sochis for us.
Yep.
I was
the last one.
Yeah. I was
dogs.
the lead dog handler at that stage. We had 3 dogs in the squadron, and every job, because we were cut down from the amount of SAS blokes we could take, because we had to take the Afghan partner force, the PPRC.
Integration, yeah.
Yep, the Taliban. PPRC. Yeah, the doggies always went out for a number of reasons. You know, force protection, because there was so few SAS guys on the ground. We'd force multiply with the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, so plus, you know, PPRC, you couldn't trust them, so they hated dogs. So worst case now, set the fucking dog on the PPRC as well.
Yeah. All right, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves. We're still back in 11 at this stage, so. You're prepping, you and Stone are prepping to go away again. You're integrating with the team. It's going well.
Yep.
I take it. Yeah.
So I was the junior dog handler working for Big Country. I'll give him a shout out. Probably one of the best patrol commanders. No, he is the best patrol commander I work for. He's a fucking excellent operator, excellent tactician, proper ardgunt. But he got Sanders flat now and again. But he was excellent in the regard that he listened to the expertise in his patrol, regardless whether it was a dog handler or JTAC or whatever.
Yep.
Even if he was qualified and he was a JTAC, he'd still listen to the guy doing the role.
Yep.
And let him do his thing, which is a sign of a great leader. But that's kind of digressing. I was a junior dog handler in the troops. I was actually in the team.
So there's 3 of you?
3 of us.
Yep.
So Corporal G was now 2IC. He handed his dog over to Corporal T.
Yep.
And Corporal J was the lead dog handler for the squadron with Cougar.
Yep.
So Corporal T had Cujo, and I had Stone. So we deployed over. I think those 2 guys are in Troop HQ. I'm not quite sure if they're in teams. I think they're both in Troop HQ. But we deployed over, and pretty early on, Cujo was shot. So I was bumped up to, the second dog, I suppose.
Yep.
Back in the day, we used to call them sharks, land sharks.
Yep.
So the call sign was Shark 1, 2, and 3. I bumped up to Shark 2.
Okay. Just on that, so we talk about, without giving anything away, we talk about those teams being attached to HQ. Why is that?
Each job, it depends what team's going where. It depends what the weather's doing. So if one team's on the helicopter, staying on the helicopter, and they might insert somewhere else, then they may need that force multiplier with the dog. They may need the non-lethal interdiction to bring down a squirter.
Yep.
If a team is on Overwatch, you're not going to need a dog. So you'll send the dog where the team's going through the door.
Yep.
So it just depends where the dog needed. So the 2 senior dogs would be farmed out from, and handlers obviously, would be farmed out from Troop HQ to where they would need it in the teams.
So it just allows them to get pushed around rather than staying with one element.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I say, because I was a junior dog at the time, I was always with Big Country.
Okay.
Unless I'd deploy with him onto the ground, and then if another dog was needed, I'd just get detached from him and sent somewhere else, which often happened.
Yeah.
Happened.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to Cujo getting shot. So we won't go into too much detail on how that occurred, but he got shot.
Yeah, so we were out in, I think it might have been Day Rashan or somewhere up that shitty little green belt. And it was fighting season, so the corn was quite high. Those of you who haven't been, the corn can go above your head. And if you stood up, you can't really see anything. The best use for clearing the corn is the dogs. You've got a camera on their back, so you can send them in. And unless you're down on your belt buckle, you can't see, less than a foot in front of you. So if you're clearing that, it's great to clear with dogs. And a good story. I'll digress slightly, but I'll give the story anyway.
Sure.
Cougar was on the bite with a guy, and there was two guys waiting in ambush. Cougar was biting one guy, and his handler went in with him and dispatched that guy. Cougar took off straight away, and the handler was like, "What the fuck's he doing?" But there was another guy hid with, gunned up, ready to take on the troop the other side of the cornfield. So obviously his handler went after Cougar and find out what was going on there, and took care of that situation as well. So dogs are essential for clearing corn. And Cujo was in a similar situation. They were clearing through the corn. Cujo took off, and there was a guy waiting in ambush, gunned up, and unfortunately, Cujo took one in the leg before the guy was
dispatched
with hostility.
Yes,
I don't know. I wasn't there, but I was in a different team. But
sure.
But fortunately, he lived. He went home and he retired with his first handler, Corporal G.
Yep.
And lives at home now.
Yeah. So he lost that leg.
He did, mate.
Yeah.
So
Eventually,
they tried to keep it.
Yeah.
And they were doing skin grafts, and he flew all the way to Germany and visited the Frauleins.
Yep.
And then obviously got back. But it was just in and out of hospital getting these skin grafts and all this stuff, and it was just miserable for him. So they chopped it off, and he ended up like me with a tripod.
Yeah. Idiot. I just mentioned that because obviously the dogs are held in super high regard, and they did everything. The money that was poured into saving that dog and saving that leg was phenomenal. In the end, the infection just kept coming back, so he lost that leg.
Yeah.
But I just bring it up because SASR, they treated their dogs like they were troops, and they did everything they could to save that dog.
I'll give the Yanks a shout out as well. They flew him over to, I don't know, it might be Liechtenstein or something like that anyway. But they flew him over to the hospital there and, poured thousands and thousands of dollars into him, all at the US taxpayers, dime.
Yep.
And they looked after him really well. I think there's an article out there you can Google.
There is, and a couple of photos actually as well. Yeah.
But they're definitely worth it.
Okay. So he's off the battlefield. So that means there's two dogs. Do you have dogs in reserve, or do you surge dogs over in that instance, or do you just go, it's not worth it? Or
so we don't really have dogs in reserve. However, because we were deployed at the time, we had kind of money there. We could buy dogs.
Sure.
So Mario was sent to Canada.
Yep.
And purchased Ruger and Titan, I think they were.
I'll
check my
the
memory.
two. Yep.
And they were brought over and put into training straight away. They were too green just to go straight on the ground. So they were training. They were taking out the jobs on OJTs, but they weren't really off the leash. Titan went out a few times, but he was more of a fire and forget at someone who you could see.
Yep.
But other than that, you couldn't. They were not ready for any older stuff. Their obedience wasn't great, but we fortunately managed to get two dogs, and I think it was 25 grand Canadian we paid for them.
It was a lot of money.
For a quick procurement. Back in the day as well. I know they're worth a lot more now, but that was classed as a lot of money back in 2011. Indeed.
And obviously that, because they got searched in Afghanistan, there was a whole rigmarole around Aquas and all that, and bringing them back in, and it ended up being a bit of a nightmare. But again, that's you guys working it out on the fly. You were kind of treading new territory.
And that's it. The dogs are expensive, so you can't really have them just sat at work ready to go. You've got the other squadrons training their dogs, and you've got some in training. But as you'll find out in a minute, when Fax was killed, I was at home working stone, getting ready to deploy again in 2013.
Yep.
And I'd said to that Fax's handler prior to going, hey, if worst case scenario, if Fax gets shot, let me know and you can take Stone on, thinking that it wouldn't happen. But the next minute, I'll get a phone call from you when I'm in the cinema saying Fax has just been schwacked.
Yep.
We're
Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, we're sending Stone over.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will. All right, so you've done your lead-up training. You're over there. Cougar is operational. Stone's operational. You've just had a dog shot. You've got Cougar and Titan there as well, so you're kind of training them as well. As if that wasn't enough, what else you got going on?
So obviously with Stone's first tour, there's a lot of anxiety for me around, is he going to bite? Biting someone in a bite suit is completely different to actually biting someone without bite suits. And obviously you do your progression in the bite suit, and then your sleeve, and then your hidden sleeve, and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And Stone did okay. He did really good. But there's still that target picture, target scent. Is he going to bite this guy? Is he going to see something he doesn't know? So yeah, that's a little bit of anxiety there for me.
Yeah, I bet.
His first send-off, we got off the helo and I could see someone squirting. So I made sure the dog had seen him. Yep, I can watch. And sent him off on the attack. And it's probably about 200 meters, and the dogs close this distance real quick. And as we were closing the distance as well, a little bit slower because we're way down. But as I could see, as I got closer, I could see that it was a young fella, probably about 14, 15.
Okay.
So his first send off was a cease attack.
Yeah, right.
Not ideal, right?
Not ideal.
So got the target picture, got the target scent, can see, but I can fire and forget. Cease attack. So yeah. Not ideal for the first send-off, but the fact that he listened and literally he was on his haunches getting ready to launch at this kid, and I was like, Stone, down, and he just dropped to his guts and waited, and then I recalled him. So yeah, that was good to see.
That's a testament to the training.
It is, mate, 100%.
Just for those that don't realise how big that is, these dogs. They are a high-level dog. That's why they're with. Bite. Yeah, that's why they're with you guys. For them to cease on finals, that is a testament to your training. Yeah, and
I think that's a testament to the selection process as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, the RAF and people like Corporal Sergeant now Sergeant J.
Yep.
Put together a testing process to see the obedience, the strength, the nerves, all that sort of stuff. And the integration with other people that don't know. So yeah, down to the training and that selection process for the dog. It's a testament to that. 100%.
Okay. All right, so you've just ceased him.
Yeah, just ceased him.
First go.
It was again a lot of training. So you can't replicate that target picture and target scent back in Australia. Obviously taking Afghan people's clothes home as a war crime, so we didn't do that. You can buy them from the bazaar and take them, but you can't take them, from target with the smell of the Afghan on. And that was a target picture at the time, or target scent, sorry. So, yeah, just getting that kind of in the mind for the dog.
Well, that's important, hey?
Hugely important.
We got to talk about profiling. You're in the middle of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The man dress. That was the picture, huh? So
yeah, it was, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing in that. That's just what the dogs were targeting. So you've got to train them accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's heaps more training, and all the odors in Australia, again, just the natural odors are completely different in Afghanistan. So whilst you're doing all of your odor training with your black powder or ammonium nitrate, whatever it might be, you need to get out there and put that out on the ground as well. So whether it be in the compound back in TK, but that has all Westerners smell over it anyway. Mm-hmm. So taking stuff out on the ground or finding stuff out on the ground and then hiding it for them was ideal. So it was a free win. So training would still go out. We still do training after we've done the actual hit on the ground, waiting for the helos, whether it be hiding an AK mag that we'd found on target under a rock somewhere, and then just giving him his ball.
Yeah.
So even though we were out on the ground, there was still that training incorporated for him. So each time he was going out, he was getting a win of some description.
Yeah.
So that was really important. The first bite he had was, and I was thinking 5 minutes ago, and I couldn't remember because he did have that many. I can't remember where we were, but we dropped off, and there was this compound in the middle of nowhere, and the two guys squirting. So they started squirting away from target initially. They seen me send the dog. They turned around and ran back towards the hut. He got the last guy on the leg. Stone was a bastard for biting on the legs, which we'll talk about later, and how we try to get him around it. But he did. He stopped the guy, and chewed him up a bit on the leg, and we pucked that guy. So that was his first bite. So I was quite chuffed that he did bite. I was a bit pissed off that he was low. Obviously, for those that aren't in the dog world, the reason you don't want him to bite low is for what happened for Cujo. Where on the bite, the potential there for the hands that aren't being bitten to start stabbing or whatever, and we've seen that before with dogs. Stone got hit with a sigh a few times because he was biting low. So yeah, you definitely want to bite nice and high, and I think there's a few areas that you want him nice and tight inside the arm or on the back of the shoulder, back of the arm.
We're definitely targeting,
and that one's preferable, so you can't get stabbed by the person or shot by the person, which all of our dogs we've lost for the most part have been shot whilst on the bite. So
heaps
of training.
Lots of training. I was just trying to figure out how to say that, but also a few lessons learned, huh? So the US had lost. They traditionally in the beginning they had sport dogs who got zapped a lot because they went low and then left the hands free for the bad guy to do what he wanted. Yeah,
so we realised really early on Stone loved going for the legs. So it was fucking painful trying to get him to go upper body or arm or whatever. So when we train him back in TK and then back in Perth when we finished that trip, we'd always put the decoy or whatever you call it behind a table or behind a barricade to force him to go high.
Just frame it,
so we'd frame it so he'd have to go high. There was no legs on show. And it did work.
It did for the most part. Obviously, it was a little part of his foundation, the legs. But,
it was.
For the most part, obviously, I got there in 11. He was flying pretty high. By that stage, so you guys obviously did it right. So,
but he was a different biter to what I've seen. So Cujo, they'd get on the bite and they'd just fucking shake their head like a land shark. Stone would just bite and clamp down and just hold. And then he'd look to Dad like, "Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing?" He definitely and it came. I think it came down to Afghans just being tough fuckers. Like we've all been in the decoy suit or whatever. Do we call it decoy now? Yeah. So in the suit, and the dog bites you like and you're chucking around and dancing around like a fucking pork chop. But people that he bit, most of the people that he bit overseas, were staunch. Like they fucking scared of dogs. But they're either trying to fight him to shoot him, or just sit there and don't move. And he's like, okay, now what do I do? Until they're pucked or whatever. He just like bite and hang on because he's waiting for that fight. And the people that didn't fight, he didn't fight them. He just hold them. So we had to change that target picture again.
That's important too. Like that you guys evolve. That you see that Afghans aren't fighting and they're super quiet, waiting for their time.
But again, just to elaborate on that. And why you need to change that picture to keep the Afghan busy is if he sat there not doing anything and the dog's just holding and biting, then there's nothing to stop them reaching in the coat pocket to get a pistol or a knife or whatever and just turn around and stab the dog. Because the dog's not giving him any hassle. He's just holding. And don't get me wrong, is a vice-like hold, but it's still a hold. And it's not breaking skin. That they definitely need to keep that Talib squirter or whatever it might be busy until you can get there and take physical control of him, so he doesn't have the opportunity to get weapons out.
Yeah, we definitely went to kind of a more of a pushing bite.
Yeah.
To kind of keep them off balance.
Yeah.
So you guys could get there in later times. But I think obviously he came from an outside breeder, and he come not super young, super old. So
I think it was 18 months, was he?
Yeah, he was so super young. So he'd been trained in a certain style, and once they get that as their foundation, that can be super hard to get rid of. Yeah.
I suppose the next big event on the 2011 trip. So Stone had a few bites by that stage, had a few case finds, which be important to talk about in a minute. But I was on a mobility job up in the mountains somewhere, so I wasn't working with the troop. We were doing some intelligence gathering stuff.
Yep.
And the troop went out for a hit, and Cougar was out front of the troop, so he's the only dog working at this stage. Stone was back in the kennel. I didn't take him with me on my job. Obviously, Cujo had just been shot and sent to Germany, so they only had one dog. Corporal J was running Cougar. And again, Google it because the story's fantastic. Or go on my Insta page, just a quick plug. There's a brief story there of what he did, and he's a great dog. So he took off in front of the troop, and fortunately had the wind with him, and he smelt a bad guy across the river. Started to swim across the river, and his handler backing him up from the bank. The guy opened up on Cougar, and he kept swimming. Got to the other side of the bank, ran over and started biting the guy. The guy upended the AK, shot him 5 times, through the legs, through the chest, through the ear, the muzzle. I think I might have missed something, but shot him a heap of times. The guy ran off, was cleaned up by the Apaches, and Cougar's pretty much slumped down there, in a bad way. Corporal J recalls him, and being the weapon he is, he ran across. Sorry, he swam back across the stream, even though he'd just been shot through the leg and full of holes.
Yeah.
Obviously Corporal J did the initial work on him. They called in a Kazivac and then got him down to Kandahar to get patched up. So in doing that, being out front, just providing that early warning and smelling that guy out, he stopped the troop getting ambushed and 100% saved lives. He would go on to go to Germany, then go back to Perth, and continue his rehab, saved his leg, and he was, getting better, and he was slowly integrating back into work. But unfortunately, just due to his wounds and the stress placed on his body, Corporal J went in one morning and found him dead in the kennel. Really, really shame, because he was a beautiful, beautiful dog, and the epitome of an SAS dog.
Yeah, I do remember that morning. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
So that means Cougar has now been hit. Cujo's been hit,
and I'm the newest kid on the block with the greenest dog. So I had some really, really big shoes to fill, and so did Stone.
Yeah.
And just by Mario and Corporal J giving me their best training, I suppose, and advice. We had some great wins, but what did happen back in Perth, we had a new dog, Quake. Quake, no! So everyone's heard of Quake.
Yep.
So he was back in Perth, but he wasn't going overly great. And again, before I've mentioned, the DLOs are the font of all knowledge. Sometimes you may get one that's not. And that's down to the other DLOs and the handlers to pick up. So Quake was having a few issues where he didn't want to work. So they tried to put a harness on him and he'd blow his stomach out, so they couldn't fit it. Just having a few issues. But they sent him over. So they forwarded him on. And Corporal J, being the dog whisperer he is, he just took him on and he got that out of him. So initially, just training, and then outside the wire on a tracking harness. So he didn't have the option to blow his stomach out.
Yep.
And then he was just fire and forget. He wasn't great at odor. We still worked him with every dog, with jobs and training, but he was a bite dog through and through.
Yeah. Bred from the RAF as well. Just
so with his brother Quirk.
Yeah.
Quirk's still alive at home. He's gone.
Yep, he's deceased now.
Oh well, that's a shame.
Yeah. That's okay.
No good. But so Quake came over, worked with Corporal J, and had some wins, had some great wins. And again, it's down to Corporal J. He is the dog whisperer of the SES world, and I can't plug him enough for that.
Yeah.
So he could take dogs that wouldn't work and make them just land sharks. Absolute weapon. So that happened with Quake. So Quake stayed over on that trip. After that trip, should I say, into 2012 with 3 Squadron, and you've all seen the footage.
Yeah. So anyway, back to 11.
Yeah.
So then it's you and Stone and Corporal J and Quake.
Yeah. So I wasn't Shark 1. I wasn't the lead dog handler. That was still Corporal J. But the dog wasn't up to as much as what Stone was at that stage. So I was still used with Stone, probably a little bit more in some areas than what Corporal J was. But on that trip, just one example of how we both worked together with Quake and Stone. We were, I think it might have been Kazrazgan, up in the mountains. We'd just done a job. We walked up onto the high ground, which was a bit of a ball buster. Got to the top, and it was like antenna farm. There's quite a few antennas up, so it was obvious where we were. And I took cover behind a big rock, and Stone was kind of sat out there in the open, and all of a sudden a PKM machine gun burst came through the whole troop. I quickly grabbed Stone in behind the rock with me. Corporal J was somewhere else with Quake, and we received a few bursts from PKM on the hill next door. One of the patrol commanders said, fuck it, up the guts, no smoke, send the dogs. So Corporal J, myself, and both the dogs with the patrol commander's team. Dogs out front leading with the patrol in extended line, just pushing up the hill. So we pushed the guys off the hill. We actually heard them on the ICOM with the interrupter saying, them dogs are so brave, they must be colonels or some shit. It was quite funny. They deserve medals. So
they do.
The dogs pushed them off the hill, and when we got to the top, again taking cover behind all the rocks, we received another burst from the hill again opposite. We weren't going to keep pushing on and up each hill. We just wanted to push the guys back away from the troop.
Yeah.
The helicopters were en route anyway. We knew where they were, and we just called the Apaches in, and they just fucking decimated the other hill. So that problem was put to bed. But again, they're not fire and forget, and you don't put them in too much danger willy-nilly. But yeah, they are definite force multipliers.
Yeah. That's important to kind of state that you pour thousands and thousands of hours into these dogs and lots of money. They're not throw away and forget.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
You're not going to send a dog into a room knowing there's a guy there with a gun. If you know there's a guy there with a gun, then I don't know, chuck a grenade in.
Yeah.
Blow the roof in, blow the door in, thermobaric the room. You don't need to, send the dogs.
Yeah, don't need to waste them.
Nah.
Okay, so
this is war, by the way. Obviously, don't do it in downtown fucking Perth, but
yes,
or do, I don't know.
And this is hectic. You're losing dogs left, right, and center. You've got lots of jobs on, lots of contact.
Yep.
Is it what you had thought it would be, or
is it
better?
It was epic. On my first trip in 2010, I've been in the army then like 15, 16 years, and I was still the lid. I was still the new guy.
Yeah.
I still carried the ladder. I was still watching the rear. So there's definitely a hierarchy when you get to the troop. So as much as you train with CQB and you're the new guy, you're on the door, you're going through first, you're shooting the targets in the room, or, doing whatever.
Yeah.
When it comes to the live jobs, you're not so you are, but you carry the fucking ladder.
Yeah.
You're carrying the more kit. You're watching the rear. So the senior guys, the scouts, the 2ICs, they're doing the sexiest stuff. So as a dog handler, especially when you're losing dogs left, right, and Chelsea, they want the dogs there because they know there's shit going down. So as soon as stuff did happen, they'd call for the dogs. So you were involved in everything.
Up front. Yeah.
Whatever team it was. So if I went out with one team, did the stuff there with them, and then got called away to another team, like I'd be doing the same in another compound, or we know this guy's the guy we're looking for, come over and help us look for his fucking weapon or his ICOM or his phone or whatever it might be, and they go and take the dogs and, use their nose. And just talking about that, I think Stone probably had about 30, 40 bites.
Yeah, right.
But he had the same cage finds as well, maybe even more. So on this trip, we went after a guy. We fucking knew it was him. We seen him coming in on the helo. We knew his face, knew what it looked like. He was the only one that was really, really clean. He had a waistcoat on, immaculate white dish dash, beautiful black beard, big turban, nice gold watch, clean hands. Not that we've seen all that from the helo, but we knew it was him.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got down on the ground. We'd captured him, but we just couldn't identify him to his communications.
Okay.
So we needed to do that. So we had specialists in the troop that were trying to find his communications handset. They were doing that, and essentially, I wanted to beat the cunt. So me and Stone were out looking for this guy's waistcoat because he'd hidden his waistcoat. So you got this specialist trying to find this stuff, and there was me trying to find the stuff with the dog, and the dog won. So he hid his waistcoat up under a bridge, a small bridge. So yeah, the dog had a win.
Awesome.
Over technology, though.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And that was just the different scent, the human scent, in a place where you didn't expect it. So he's, grass, water, bridge, fucking human scent. So he sat on the human scent of this bloke's, waistcoat.
Yeah.
So yeah, win.
That's cool. So you're obviously, things are evolving fast for you.
Yep.
You're not long been a dog handler, and now you're 2IC basically, but your dog is kind of picking up the slack for dogs that aren't there anymore.
Yep.
Do you have total faith in the dog, or
no?
Okay.
Is a dog.
Yes.
So there's always that. He can get this wrong.
Yes.
I can get this wrong. So it's not only not 100% trusting him, it's not 100% trusting myself either.
Yeah.
When life's kind of at stake, you've got to have that reasonable doubt in your mind.
You got to check yourself. Yeah.
Competence and confidence is completely different things.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't mix the two. And I would always, my patrol commander at the time would always call me forward to do a point of entry search on when we're going to these compounds. And I'd just say, hey, look, he's not fucking trained on buried odor. So there's a chance that he might not find it. Because he's quick. When he does his searches, he uses his nose, he uses the wind, and he runs around. So he may not find anything that's been buried there for a short time or for a long time. I know it permeates differently, but I said, just be aware. And he's like, yep, but it's better than nothing. So I just made sure that he was aware, that is not infallible. So yeah, there's always that doubt.
So you've got the doubt. What about the troop? Because obviously they're even less educated. You're the SME.
Yeah, sometimes I think the less education for the troop is better because they trust you and the dog more. They trust you to know what the dog's doing. We had a guy who was in the troop, had a pet, thought he was a fucking dog expert, wrote a paper on dogs, but knew nothing about dogs. So, I mean, a little bit of fucking information is good for some people.
Sure.
For other people, it's probably
dangerous.
It's dangerous, yeah.
Yeah.
But in regards to what the dog can and can't do, the troop had a good trust in the dogs and you as a handler.
Yeah.
But that came from, like I said before, is your hard work prior. So you don't get there and straight away, rise to the occasion. It's that months and months and months, sometimes years work prior to getting there to actually produce the goods.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So 11. Give me more stories. Is there more stories?
Yeah, I'll fucking heap stories.
Let's go. Let's go. I want them all.
Yeah. So odor again, like he was so good at finding stuff that wasn't in the right place. We land on multiple targets, and notice the guys were looking for. We'd target their ICOMs or whatever we were doing, and they'd hide them on when we land, and we'd capture all these guys. We'd say, yeah, we know this guy's, the guy, but we couldn't prove it because we didn't have their ICOM. So we'd send the dog out, and the dog would go using his nose, and 9 times out of 10, he'd be, he'd find the ICOM, and they'd hastily bury it under some rocks or whatever it might be. But it was just that different scent that didn't belong in that area, that odd one out.
Yeah.
made him sit on it.
Yeah. Coupled with a bit of disturbance and
100%.
and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like you run them on ICOMs.
No, fuck no. And that's probably a good thing to remember is like my timeline might be slightly out. Some of my training methodologies might be slightly out because, like I say, I know things have evolved since 2013.
Yeah.
I think the dogs we had back then were probably the best SESR I've seen simply because they were operational all the time. But I know training methods have changed. So some of my terminology, like decoy, I can't remember what we called them back in the day, but cunt in a bite suit, I think.
Yeah, get out there.
Yeah. So my timeline might be slightly off. But, he was great on his nose. He found. That's 2013, but I'll talk about it now anyway. We entered a compound and did a search. I was a senior doggy at the time, but sent him out on his own to clear the compound, and he went into a tomato patch and he found a YPOC, a yellow palm oil container, 20 kilos of bang in it, and it was hooked up, ready to go. And the photo was actually on my Insta page, another plug. And you can see, if you zoom in, you can actually see the wires coming out the front of the yellow palm oil container. She was hooked up, good to go, and Stone kind of smelt that and lid down straight away. Me being an engineer, clearly not, went up and had a quick look and, fuck, that's an idea, I might get back. And that's when we called in the engineers. But yeah, he found heaps of ammunition, weapons, heaps of stuff. So he was excellent on the nose. I suppose the only one other job but a serial that we did with Stone on that one was the actual jump. So we did a couple of op jumps with Stone on that trip.
Okay.
The evolution's changed. And again, I can talk about it because there's pictures all over social media with, special forces jumping with dogs. So there's no secret. And the progression is not as if you're going to take your fucking Labrador up to Jurien Bay and start jumping them. So, and Afghans and our enemies don't jump dogs. So, we can talk about it. But, it wasn't a case of just take him up in a plane, chuck him in the bag and chuck him out because he'd probably bite your face off. Mm-hmm. So I'd done training prior to deploying. There was a few teething issues. I went on my back and had a bit of a tumble on the first one because he wasn't close enough to my body. So we changed the carabiners to the repeater links on the parachutes, just to keep them closer to my body. And that seemed to work. I used it overseas. I know they've gone back to carabiners now and they've got a different setup. I jumped them dogs down there, and the progression was take them up in a plane on the leash, leave them on the plane, land with the plane, take them up on the next one, put them in the bag, land with the plane, take them up on the next one, put them in the bag, then jump them in the day, and then do the same at night. And that was basically the progression. So I did that with a few RAF dogs. I did it with Stone on the beat up to the trip on the final exercise, or the MRE down in Koltana.
Yep.
In fact, I think I jumped Titan on that one.
Okay.
No, I can't have done. He wasn't there. Must have been Stone. That's what I mean with timeline. Anyway,
yeah.
We did a few jumps with Stone, and he was fine. We'd get him onto the DZ, throw his ball for him, and he was back to normal. He didn't care. We did do one jump with him where he didn't jump with me. He jumped with a water operator rigged up to a tandem chute and another operator. Okay. And he shit in the bag. So, I let the power loft clear that bag out. But, he was fine.
So you're doing these training jumps? So
No, that's all. Oh, back in Perth,
back in Perth.
Yeah.
But there wouldn't be too many that SAS Australia, at least, could claim as op jumps with a dog?
No. There's very few.
Yeah.
I know they've integrated the fucking red dog now, and it looks more like a seal, and it doesn't fly the same as a proper dog, but they still jump that. No, there's not. I'd say there's probably a handful of people that have jumped dogs. Obviously myself being one, but my dog still alive, retired. Got more jumps than the whole of op jumps anyway than the whole of PDS. So, and 2 commando. Sorry, boys.
Calm down. So operationally, how was that to jump a dog operationally? Was that weighing on your mind, or was it just business? You just let's go.
Well, again, the research is out there online. You can jump a dog up to 18,000 feet without any issues with the dog. But we were doing one on O2, so I wanted to do it with my dog. We didn't have muzzles at the time, so kind of jury wig one. So you've got the Oxyviva muzzle, a plastic muzzle thing for your dog. I just drilled a few holes in it, let the CO2 out. Jury rigged it up to an O2 tank, and it was, set on a permanent send on a blue mark. So I knew as soon as I come off the airplane's oxygen to turn it to that blue mark.
Yeah.
And we'd have 11 minutes, which is plenty of time to get down to a height where you could breathe normally anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, with a bit of help from the Paraloft, we made in this muzzle.
Yep.
And we jumped. So whilst on the plane, I took Panda up, who's an ex-rigger, good guy.
Yeah, he is a great guy.
I think he was on the juice at that stage because he was quite big.
He was a big boy, yeah.
He was
All up to you, Panda. We were just chatting last week, so
good.
He's doing well.
So we chucked him on the plane, in a seat, and took him up to help me get the dog in the bag. So, 20-minute warning. Started putting the dog in the bag, and I've got my rig on, all my battle gear, guns and whatnot, and trying to get the fucking dog in the bag. Panda's trying to help, and he's just fucking nailed there doing nothing. I'm like, mate, what are you doing? And like, the time's ticking down, 10 minutes. I'm like, fucking dog's not in the bag, and Panda just looks at me. I'm fucking hypoxic. I'm hypoxic. Oh, fucking get out of my way. So I put him back in the seat, made sure his O2 was good, and then carried on putting the dog in the bag. So I'm still hooked up to the plane at this stage, and I'm struggling to get this fucking dog in the bag and hook him to me and strap the legs around me and whatnot. And the time's counting down. It's like 3 minutes, and I'm fucking still trying to get the dog on me. And I turned around to the PJ and said, fucking give me a check. And the ramp's open, the light's on, and he's giving me this fucking quick check, and he's like, you're good. I'm like, not feeling fucking okay with this.
Yeah.
So I start walking down towards the back of the airplane, and I'm fucking still hooked up to the plane on the O2 lead. So I'm like, I can get these leads off. So people are exiting the aircraft at this stage, so we managed to get two leads off. And I'm at the back, and I'm thinking to myself, fuck, like, I'm not happy that this fucking rig's going to open, or he's on me properly, or what. But all the guys are exiting. I was like, I fucking can't stay on the plane. So I was like, who dares win? So I fucking jumped out and let gravity do the work. Fortunately, it was good. Deployed, and she was like a fucking bought one.
Awesome.
So
awesome, mate.
Who dares wins, mate. There's always a bit of that, but there's no way I was going to stay on the plane, and I would never live that down. I think I'd rather fucking crash and burn. Because the blokes don't let you forgive shit. Or forget shit, should I say.
Yeah. Is that, obviously you look back at that, like, for me, I go, that's pretty monumental. Is that how you look at it, or you don't look at it that way? You just go,
fuck, another day at work, mate.
Box ticked kind of thing. Let's go.
In regards to jumping overseas, you're in the special air service. You want to do an operational jump. It's not the fucking special ground service, is it?
No.
It's not a box ticking thing. I wouldn't say that, but it's definitely it's a fucking something everybody wants to do is jump operationally.
Sure.
I remember the first jump we did in 2010. Me and a guy, good mate called Mick, on the DZ, like landed on a job down in Zabul, I think it was, and landed next to each other, and we had this big fucking IR stream from a UAV, and he's fucking landed next to me. I've landed next to him. We kind of looked across, and before we've even done anything, we fucking bumped fist and started getting guns and shit out. So it was a pretty cool thing, mate.
Awesome, mate.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Super impressive.
Yeah.
All right, so let's back to 11. Do you want to discuss that any further, or have we dealt with 11? Is there any lessons learned, obviously, that you want to take from, because obviously dogs were quite decimated on that trip? Or is it just the way it kind of rolled?
Yeah, I mean, we've lost heaps of dogs through, them saving lives, and the biggest thing is they are a lifesaver.
Yeah,
and that was my biggest takeaway from 2011, definitely, and again is what got me into it from the 2010 trip.
Yeah.
So my focus changed, I think, after Brownie died, in regards to I want to do the dog course, not to get first through the door or any of that shit. It was more of if we had more dogs, then we could potentially save more operators.
Sure.
So I think whilst, I was called up to go fucking up the guts with no smoke or called to the doorway first, my whole perception of that changed to protecting the blokes.
Yeah.
And as it went on 2013, more so because less operators were going out on the ground for more Afghans. So I definitely wanted to be in a position to protect the blokes, I suppose.
Yeah.
I know that sounds, fucking whatever, wanky,
No.
whatever, but it was losing Brownie had a big effect on me, mate.
Yeah.
And I don't mind admitting it. And I didn't want that to happen again with one squadron or any squadron. But yeah.
So 11's done. You come home. You guys go on team.
Yeah, so on team, I'd come back. Like he did his time in Aquis, got him out, brought him back to work, and started training on team. We're supposed to be on team 6 months, and then I don't think we're deploying in 2012.
No.
So this is when I turned around to the 2 squadron guy, faxed handler, and said, "Hey, look, if you have any issues when you deploy, just let me know, and I'll surge stone forward." Obviously, it was in Aquis for 3 months, and then post that, is when they deployed.
Yeah.
But it was just training that year.
Obviously, another big kind of tumultuous year for dogs.
Yeah, so obviously Dids was killed 2012 early on. We were over in Canberra, and obviously then we got the news that Dids had died, and in the same contact Devil, who was working for a good friend of ours. So we lost another dog then. But yeah, the next really, it was just training for us really, and team. The next big thing was when Fax was killed, and obviously
Quake.
Was that first?
Yeah, so Devil, Quake went not long, just before they came home.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you talk about that because I can't remember that one.
Yeah.
Of course it was. Same trip.
Yes.
Of course it was, yeah. 3 squadron. Yeah.
And then Fax went on the winter trip.
Yeah, so I'll talk quickly to Quake because I've actually written a story up about him, and again, it's on my Instagram. So the troops were in the valley in Tick. The guys inserted behind the enemy, started pushing down with the Corporal B. And as they were climbing down this cliff face, they kind of got level, and then they pushed forward. Quake was out front, got the sniff of the ambush position, essentially went in, got one of the guys on the bite, spooked the remainder. They ran off into a hasty ambush by another patrol and fucking all got unced. But obviously Quake died in the process, and it was Corporal B and Trooper W, a good fella who's still in. I won't mention his name, but he went forward and retrieved Quake's body, and they carried it pretty much for the next 24 hours out on the ground, still in contact and pushing towards the enemy, and all the way out to the helo exfiltration. So yeah, good shout out to them 2 guys. Quake.
Yeah, I did. Obviously, we all talk a lot amongst ourselves, and I'll never forget Corporal B talking about how there was not even an inkling of leaving that dog behind.
God, no.
They were taking him out.
Yeah. God, no. And we feel the same about the EDD dogs as well.
Yeah.
Like Pom, I know you spoke to him already. I thought you were speaking to him after me, but how dare you speak to him for me?
Yeah.
He's a cracking guy, and he worked with all squadrons, and he was working for us with one squadron. His dog was great. He was a great fit as an engineer from SOA into the FE Alpha, and his dog was great. And the good thing was with Pom, there was no airs and graces. It was just a case of let's train dogs, and we did a lot of training together. And that's what got me the idea to start training stone with buried odor, which obviously myself and you did on the next trip, which we'll cover in a minute. But it was good to be able to give back to him as well, and obviously teaching the laser pointer with his dog so he could do point of entry or point of interest searches. So that was something we kind of did really well with Stone on that 2011 trip, was the point of entry search. So we started... it has to be a red dot laser, clearly, because we've got the PEC 5s and their red dot. Because he's not going to say fucking R1, is he? So we started with a ball with a red dot laser, just shining it on the ball and giving it a wiggle so he could see it. and saying the key word was laser. So laser, and then he'd go and get the ball. I started with force retrieve, to be honest, just because that's how I trained him.
Yep.
People train differently now. So we started it right in front of his face, and then put it on the floor, put it a little bit further, and continue to do it until I could, hide something somewhere, and then put the laser on it, and in that area, and Stone would go and find it with his nose where that laser was. So that worked his ass off. To the point where we'd go training down at the koala at night time on TK base, stand on the roof with a red dot laser, shine it in the doorways, put someone in there in a bite suit. Stone would go in on that laser from the compound, so no operators have made entry into the compound. You could say laser from the front door, or throw him over the fucking wall, whatever.
Yeah.
And he would go on that laser, and whether it be odor, whether it be bite, he'd get in there and do his job. And you could pretty much call him out of the room and then say laser again and send him into another room. So that worked his ass off. And again, force protection.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, clearly you're not going to do it with a compound that's full, because at that stage we were doing a lot of cordoning call-outs. So we were calling them out of the compounds. They get sent in when the compound was empty to make sure it was completely empty. But unfortunate, with the Afghans, they don't really value female life. We say to the Afghan owner, hey, look, we're going to send the dog in. Is there anyone left inside? Like, no one's left inside. But 9 times out of 10, there was always a fucking baby in a crib, asleep. I wouldn't say 9 times, quite a few times.
Yeah.
But again, watching on the camera, Stone never ever bit any kids. He never ever went, like I've seen him with his nose into a crib, and I'm like, oh no, we're gonna have two halves of a baby.
Yeah.
But he'd sniff and no threat, and he'd go off to the next room, whatever. So he was a very intelligent dog. But again, I know some other dogs probably not that way inclined.
Yeah.
To ignore that.
Yeah, it's just it's a reality of war. People have got to realise that you're not in Perth. You're in the middle of the Badlands.
Yeah, and again, like, we've done our due diligence. We've called everyone out. Yeah. Is there anyone inside the compound? Because we're going to send the fucking dog in.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, there's no one left inside.
Yeah. It's a different thought process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so 12 happens. Like I said, very tumultuous.
Yeah, so Fax was obviously killed. I don't really know the story.
That was on the winter trip with Corporal J and Trooper W. Just heading up a creek line. They're getting ready they were clearing an area for Hilo, and didn't know he was there. Fax did his job, but it was winter.
Yep.
So it was had like 5 layers on, and was able to shrug the dog off and shoot him.
Yeah, okay. I do vaguely remember that now.
Yeah, but that's for those guys. That's their story.
Yeah.
I won't.
So with that one, obviously, I get a phone call, say, you promised Stone. I couldn't really say no now because I'd promised him. And again, like I said before, my whole aim at this stage was to stop operators dying.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the dogs were dying to protect operators.
Yes.
So they were doing their job.
Yep.
And I didn't want anyone in 2 Squadron to get unced and me not have sent the dog. So Corporal G at the time was due his retention.
Yep.
So he took Stone out to Afghan, was fucked over by the brass and sent back early by about 2 days, so he didn't get his retention.
Yeah.
Fucking shout out to the command there.
Yeah.
SOCOM. Woo!
Yeah.
But yeah, Stone was over. We were going over in February, I think it was anyway, January, February time. So
Yep.
He'd just stay there and not do the Aquis quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, winter, you guys were tapping in after winter trip. So what's the point of bringing him back when you're just about to arrive? So that brings us to 13.
Yeah, so again, we identified a couple of guys in 11 who were keen on doing the dog stuff. Again, they came down the koala, did some training. We watched them outside the wire. Both good operators. And they were keen as mustard to do the dog course. So they got back 12. They did their dog course. Normally, after a trip, being as a dog handler, you do the dog instructors or canine assistant instructors course, whatever you want to call it. I didn't, just for personal reasons. So I didn't. I deployed as the senior dog handler, but I wasn't a instructor. So again, I relayed relied heavily on Jace for that subject matter expertise. I had all the stuff outside the wire nailed down.
Yeah.
And I could come back and say to Jace, hey, look, mate, this happened. How the fuck do we make X, Y, and Z happen because of that? And he would be the font of knowledge there that would direct me in how to get that outcome. So yeah, these two guys did their dog course. They deployed over with Titan and Ruger. And I again moved over and picked up Stone, who was already there.
Just quickly before you go on, so
Shannon.
just think about the timing there. So you guys picked Ruger and Titan up in 11,
Yeah.
and they are just getting off course
Yeah.
and going operational in 13.
And they weren't even O-Lock, I don't think. I think Titan may have been. Ruger wasn't. I'm not quite sure.
I can't remember.
Yeah, nor can I. Anyway, so we get over to Afghan. Again, because we're working more so, we're trying to polish a turd really and say the Afghans were ready to take over their own country when clearly they weren't
Yeah.
in 2021, let alone bloody 2013.
Yeah.
So we were going out, operators were going out less, but the dogs were going out more on every trip because they're force multipliers. So we were used a lot. It was a difficult trip, to be honest, for a few reasons.
It was difficult, yeah.
For a few reasons.
Yeah.
Politics within the dog world.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I had some fucking massive shoes to fill in regards to Corporal J.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm an operator handler. I don't classify myself as a dog expert. I had some great wins and some shitty losses as well, if I'm honest, as a dog handler. So I learned off everything, and I was still learning when I handed my dog off to the second handler that had him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't class myself as an expert in the dog world. So I did rely on you a lot in regards to the training, which was fine because we produce the goods, and to the point where I think Stone was probably the best the regiment has ever seen on his nose, and we'll cover that in a minute with the buried odor stuff.
Sure.
Like I say, he had a number of jumps as well, and he had multiple bites, multiple case finds.
Seasoned by then.
He was, mate. I mean,
he
that
knew
was
the job
yeah,
inside and out.
Yeah. That was his third or fourth trip.
Yeah, about his third trip.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Third. So he was all over it. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, if you get 5 operators in a room who handle dogs, there's going to be 5 different opinions.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult to get an outcome. I'll just say there's politics involved.
Yeah. Well, that's the dog industry.
Yeah. It is, yeah. And that, for me, that was the worst part of my dog career, short dog career, if you like.
Yeah.
Was the politics. Each squadron had their own way of training. That's fine.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like one squadron did, the treats.
Yep.
To get the dogs to do stuff. We did force retrieve because that was the way we were taught.
Yep.
Unfortunately, when you get guys come through that don't listen to the experiences that you've had or the experience of the DLO, and they don't get the results with their dog.
Yeah.
And that's what we found a little bit on that trip. One of the guys was fantastic. His dog was great. For some reason, what happened to Titan? He just struggled with breathing, didn't he?
He did. He just Yeah, he had a genetic problem with his lungs, yeah.
And that's when Jack got surged over, right?
Correct. He actually didn't deploy with Titan. He deployed with Jacka.
We took Titan as a paw dog?
Titan was there, I believe.
I'm pretty sure he was. He was a spare, wasn't he? Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. My timelines are messed up. So,
mate.
One of the handlers
it's a bit
deployed with
muddled
Jacka.
for me
Yeah.
too. But for Trooper K, he deployed. And it was tough for him because he'd come through with Titan.
Yeah.
And he'd done his course with Titan, and then it was just deemed too much of a risk. So he got Jacka.
I mean, you could see even back in Perth and in Afghan, we took him for that fire and forget just in case we got another dog injured.
Yeah.
But with Titan, if he'd had a bite, you could see his breathing out of his ass after, and he struggled to get his breath back. And
he would drop
was
off
fucked.
the bite.
Yeah, he was fucked.
Yeah.
So you're right. I do remember now. He deployed with Jacka. So Jacka had a few issues with his training as well. But once he came to one squadron, he fucking killed it.
He really did.
He was another excellent dog, and Kay and Jacka worked fucking seamlessly.
Yeah. Dutch Shepherd.
Yeah, short-tailed Dutchie.
Yep. Short-tailed after he got it lopped off.
Yeah, he did get a shot off, didn't he? He took a round in the face as well.
He did on Winter Trip.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was a great dog. I didn't really get on with him simply because he fucking hated Stone.
Yeah.
So him and Stone didn't get on very well. They'd done a couple of double dog bites in training and outside the wire. To the point where they turned around and gone each other.
Yeah, that was in Canberra.
yeah. They fucking hated each other. And it was probably half down to Stone. I'd take him out and wouldn't be on a lead, and he'd run up and down the fucking cages saying, barking at the other dog saying, fuck you, you're inside and I'm out. But
yes. I've never seen two dogs hate each other.
Didn't they?
Like them.
Yeah,
Just instantaneous. As soon as they saw each other, hackles up.
Yeah.
They hated each other.
Yeah. Well, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my last trip with the dogs. I'd had heaps of wins on the previous trips, and we were pretty much going over the same stuff. And you need to keep the dogs, fit anyway, and up to just working hard. But at that stage, I wanted to try something new with the dog. So with Pom and obviously Jace, we started to look at buried odor. Stone was excellent on his nose, but it was just hard trying to slow him down. So we'd have to put him on a leash for that sort of stuff. And we just start burying odor, disturbed area, and then just put him on a leash and make him search in a line. And it was all in gravel, so it'll permeate easily.
Yeah.
And he did it really, really well.
Yeah, he picked up on it really quick.
He did,
hey?
Yeah. And he slowed. It took him ages to slow down, but eventually got it to the point, like I say, where I told you earlier about the yellow palm oil container.
Yeah.
He was off leash, and that was buried. I don't know how long it had been there, but he found that, just in my opinion, due to that training he'd had. He knew that he couldn't just put his nose up in the air and smell. He'd have to put it to the ground to find stuff, lower down on the ground as well.
The problem is he'd been clearing compounds for odor, which is fast. For so many years. And then we said, hey, slow down and put your nose on the ground. He went, what? And so that took a little while. But once he got the idea, he just ran with it. It was awesome. Yeah.
No, it was good. And like I say, we had wins just by doing that. He also loved to kind of run into a compound first up and grab a fucking chicken by the neck and snap it in half. Dog's got to be a dog.
Yeah.
So I was moving on. I was deploying again later that year. So I was looking for another guy to take my spot with Stone. We found him, Trooper E. He started doing. In fact, he didn't start doing OJTs because he was somewhere else. But he did come out of the ground with us, and he had a look at the dogs and did a bit of training when he could. And we went down to the vets where he was, and he was well keen for it. And he was good.
And he did a great job.
Great geezer and a really good handler.
He was it would have been a big ask to take Stone after you, and he just rolled with it. He was excellent.
And that's hard as a handler. And I know a lot of people have done that. They've handled a dog and then handed it off. And it's hard because, you're out on the ground and your dog gets recalled by someone else and he comes back to you and you're like, you can't fucking pat him. You just got to fucking push him away your knee. He's like, hey, mate, I've got your fucking dog. And he's like calling him back. And but even back in the hangar, back at work, he'd come up on the back of the quad on his in his box or in the car and he'd get out and he fucking loved coming up the hangar because all the boys are there. And he'd get out of his box and he'd run into the hangar and, I'm stood there and he'd come up and expect a pat because he was a pat slut. And I'd ignore him. I'd have to. It was all for, the greater good, but it was hard to ignore him.
Just made me think of it, actually. There was a bit of a toll for him, though. So remembering back when because he'd done a lot of trips with you and he also helped out another 2 squadron. He stopped. He aged quickly, hey? His hips tired out a little bit. I was keen to take him home anyway, so when Trooper E got him, he was I wouldn't say he was lazy. He wasn't lazy. No.
He still fucking loved to work, but he couldn't work as much. So he'd still get out his kennels and he'd still work like a madman. And I remember on the 13 trip, that was probably the pinnacle for him. We'd end up clearing villages, literal fucking villages, 30 compounds. And he would go in the last one as fast and as aggressive and as keen as he was in the first one.
Awesome.
And it took its toll on him.
It did.
yeah, when I handed them over to old mate, he struggled a little bit.
Yeah, he went. There's been some studies on PTSD with dogs and all that kind of thing now, and he went grey in the muzzle almost overnight, and
A bit like me, mate, and you,
and me.
Yeah.
And he also got a little bit of kennel neurosis, but he only got that right at the end of his time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it takes its toll on not just you guys, but on the dogs as well.
I think we retired him early because of that.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when the RSPCA come to do his inspection, see if he was good enough to retire, I think it normally takes about half an hour, doesn't it? But they were in there for about 45 minutes. I'm like, fuck, we're going to have to give this guy the green dream. But they came out and they were like, yeah, there's no dramas with that dog. They just sat in there patting him for 45 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. He was super balanced anyway, right from the
yeah.
get-go. You could have him around the troop and not be worried about him biting people and all that kind of thing.
100%.
The boys anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've got pictures of him. We had a big piss up on Anzac Day in 2013, and I was in the band. I wasn't very good, but I was blind drunk and having a sing song in front of the whole Hot G. And one of the boys, went up and got stoned. He goes, "Oh, can I get stoned?" I'm fucking oath, mate. So he's gone and got stoned, and he's brought him down to the mess, and he's on the table and having a drink with the boys. And then they put him back because I was blind. I forgot.
Indeed.
No drinking on ops.
No, none. I don't know what you're talking about.
Funny thing was, the RSM was giving us a piss. He was, Jen. Then he lost his pistol. Anyway,
we digress.
So get that in.
So really, that was that's you done as a dog handler and a lead dog handler, but still within the troop, you're kind of rising in the ranks and. So you kind of take over dog
and
teams?
Then going down as
well. Ebb and flow.
So I got back from Afghan in 2013 and I needed to deploy again back to Afghan for another 6 months.
Yep.
I can't really talk about that one too much, but I deployed again, handed my dog over to old mate who did his course and got back home early 2014. That's when I started to do my assistant instructors courses for Patrol Commander. So I did my CQB course. I don't know if I might have done my Patrol Commander's course that year, DEMS and MOE and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That year was pretty much courses.
Yeah.
And after that, I went to the CQB cell. So it's pretty much running the administration for the courses. Running the close quarter fighting. Anyone knows me knows I'm fucking really good with Jap slaps.
Yep.
I'm not really. We've got specialists in to do that, and I just organise them. And then you help instruct on the CQB stuff.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. Other than ops, that was probably the best time in my SAS career. Just teaching the young guys and seeing them transition from, a nervous, anxious guy having to finish selection to the finished product. And after TPC, unless you fuck up real hard, you're pretty, 90% guaranteed you're Sandy Beza. Once they finish that course, to see these guys, and they're still not the finished product, don't get me wrong, but their confidence and, how they've grown is fantastic. And I was working with some really, really awesome, influential guys. One of them's the ex-RSM, and another one, Sergeant Major M, let's call them that. Both fantastic operators, fantastic humans, fantastic trainers, and I, again, learned heaps from them. I also learned a lot from the other assistant instructors coming through. So whilst I did my course the year before, seeing these guys come through with the different ideas and the different approaches to stuff and not being under pressure myself, being able to sit back and just keep an eye on, the safety aspect of stuff was fantastic for my learning and stuff as well. And you're always learning.
Yeah.
But you also see guys come through that are shit. No, that's wrong. I'm a little bit toxic. That aren't as capable or have different leadership styles. So I learned a lot in regards to leadership, both good and bad. And I'd take the good or try to take the good and leave the bad and know, hey, that's bad, don't do it.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, I don't claim to be, bloody whoever the best leader is in the world, but I definitely learned from it and incorporated it into my my leadership skills, I suppose.
Okay.
So that was 2015.
Are you seeing? Do you see the dog teams coming through? And I'm not just saying one squadron or two squadron or whatever. You're seeing them come through. Do you, obviously coming from that world? Do you kind of?
So they're all, again, I know the whole setup back at SCSR has changed, so I'm happy to talk about it. But the whole setup was CQB cell and the dogs. They were all in one kind of troop.
Yeah.
So I saw the dogs and the dog teams and the courses, and then we'd invite the course, the dogs and the handlers and the guys doing their course down to the CQB course to integrate with the guys.
Yep.
On their Rio. So yeah, definitely seen the teams as well, so the new handlers coming through and the guys running the cell. So it honestly is a fantastic product. I forgot to mention, I did go over to the US Special Forces a couple of years prior to that and see how they handled dogs. And our dogs were on par and in some cases better.
Okay.
I did like some of their training methodologies that they used. I tried to incorporate some stuff, but again, politics in the dog world, it didn't really kind of get in. So one of them was a down muzzle. So they took this dog, they put him on a leash, put a muzzle on him, put him on a leash, and they'd be on the floor and they'd pull the dog in close. And the dogs that weren't good with muzzle fighting, they'd give him a little nip, and then the dog would fucking trying to get away, but they couldn't, so they'd fight instead. And that's how they got more aggressive on the muzzle.
Okay.
And I thought that was good because Stone wasn't the best muzzle fighter.
Yep.
So I wanted to incorporate that with him. Again, it didn't work out, and that's probably through my lack of knowledge on the thing, but that didn't work. But another thing I did see over there, which I liked, and again, it takes smart dogs to kind of pick up on it. They put a decoy about 100 meters away through a wood line, got the dog out. The dog could see the guy. The wind's coming from the left-hand side at this stage, and I'd not seen it, and I was fucking, oh, that's magic. That's like, some fucking Gandalf shit. But they, got the dog interested in this guy in the bite suit, and you've got someone else hidden. The dog can't see, can't smell because the wind's not, coming from that direction.
Yep.
So the dog's been set off on this guy, just stood there in a bite suit doing absolutely nothing, not moving. And all of a sudden, because the wind cone, the dog's got this scent on his nose and realised, fuck, that's hidden. That's a threat. That's the biggest threat. And you see the dog just literally fucking head snap and just go for this hidden guy in a bite suit. And I was really, really impressed. And that's something we did a few times with Stone.
Yep.
And other dogs as well. And we try to incorporate that. Definitely when I was lead dog handler in 2013.
Yeah, awesome.
So, yeah.
So that's probably a good time. Obviously, over your time in SASR, you would have had a lot of exposure to foreign forces and all that kind of thing. You just alluded to it that you thought the SASR dogs were on par and better in some parts. But is there any one unit or anyone that stood out to you other than obviously your own?
I visited the SBS again. Funny enough, I'm from the UK. I don't know if you know. But I visited the SBS when I was at home a few years ago and went down. I was lucky enough to get invited in to see their setup and their dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know we've sent a few dog handlers over to them as well.
Yeah.
They've got a really good, they call it CPAD, so Combat Protection and Detection Dog. Mm-hmm. And Tutu as well, the same thing. They've got a great capability. US Army SOF have got a great capability. I've seen a few of the DevGru dogs. And again, I think we all do roughly the same stuff.
Yeah,
we all select the same dogs. So we've all got kind of the same
model
end product.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't want to be dismissive of the capability we've got at the moment, but because we're not operational with dogs, we've probably missed out on a few teaching points from different theatres. So I would say that's the only difference between us and other countries' dogs at the moment is that new environment missing out on,
operational tempo will always dictate how fast you evolve.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And, we've all seen Mando and me fucking bloating up in wherever he's from with his dog with the, what's that visor, that ballistic thing? We didn't have that back in the day. The dog's just, wolling in the face.
Yeah.
But now they've got that, so you'd have to incorporate that in your training.
Sure.
So and that's just a very, very small piece of equipment. The cameras have changed, so much changed. Definitely since I did it in 2000 or last did it in 2013.
Yeah.
But it does. Tactics evolve. The dogs evolve.
Yep.
The operators evolve,
Yep.
and the time you get to train the dog, probably not so for us, but for operational units that are using dogs all the time, gets condensed. So
Okay.
yeah.
Next point is within SASR, because you're in the unit for so long. Anyone that obviously you've brought up Corporal J or Sergeant J. Any influences other than him that kind of helped pave the way for you? Like
In regards to dogs,
yeah,
because my experiences were limited to one squadron.
yeah,
It was pretty much just them two, Corporal G and Corporal J, as operators.
Sure.
Clearly, Dono. I did some training with Dono, and he was fucking awesome dog handler with Devil back in the day.
yeah,
And he's just an absolute weapon anyway.
Yeah.
And I relieved him from the battle troop post as well, so I've kind of followed him a little bit.
okay,
Not on the VC stakes, obviously. But he's someone, everybody kind of looks up to anyway. He's
Sure.
an absolute humble, jet of a man. I don't use the word hero very often. In fact, I don't use it at all. But,
Yeah.
I think the definition of a hero is someone who risks their life for someone they don't know, or
Yeah.
someone that's not part of their team. And that's exactly what he did. He's a role model for any dog handler, I think, and
yeah,
most humans in general.
yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I didn't really work with many other dog handlers outside of one squad.
Oh, hey, that's enough. Sergeant G, because he ended up taking over the cell.
He did, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, he's another humble, self-effacing, hard-working, fucking top bloke. And I've worked with him for a number of years up until the year before last. Again, another legend.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
he's not, like I joked before, where I'm half poser, half hard worker. He is fucking 100% hard worker.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate grey man. Good guy.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so that's kind of that side of it. So obviously, I know that your military career kept going up until last year.
Yep.
Is there anything you want to talk about on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk. So I did another 2 operations to the Middle East. The last one being 2021. Nothing to do with dogs.
Yeah.
I did a number of operations in Southwest Pacific, Southeast Asia, all through India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, where else? Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Japan, then back to Jordan.
So just a
Lebanon.
couple of spots.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure there's some I'm forgetting, but did heaps of different trips.
Yeah.
And time away from work.
Yeah.
Time away from home definitely doesn't help.
Yeah.
To the point where I took Stone home in 2017, I think it was.
Yeah.
He lived at home with me for about 6 months. Me and my wife, my new wife, had just had twin boys, and she was still working. So she's a hard worker. She worked full time whilst bringing up twin boys. And I had to deploy in 2018 to the Middle East.
Yep.
And I think this is probably more of a testament to. Well, there's obviously a testament to my wife being so hard working, but it's also a testament to Stone just being so clever and being able to adapt. So he came home, retired. And I was deploying again, so I was looking for someone to take care of him while I was away. And my wife's Anglo-Indian. She's born in Australia, but a family from India.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a massive family here in Perth. And one of her friends said, "Yep, I'll take him." So I was a little bit worried because the target picture and the target scent, not that they smell like Afghans, but it potentially could have been similar. But that target picture was still the same, even though they were in Western clothes.
Yep.
So took him over for, have a look, see how he got on. And he was literally straight in the house. The old man was in his chair, and the head was in the lap for a scratch behind the ears. And up on the couch, and he's been there ever since. They won't let him come home. So he's been there, like I say, since 2018, and he's literally had the best retirement. He's so clever. He's adapted to a family. So 2 young children at the time. One was probably about 11, maybe slightly older. From that, ethnic background of Asia. So really smart, and he knows not a threat. And he's he's part of the family. So really, really pleased for him that he's managed to get that. Because he wouldn't. My missus is OCD. With twins, she wouldn't let him in the house. So we built him kennels and stuff outside, and he had a run yard and whatnot. But to actually be living inside the house as part of a family, you can't get a better retirement than that. So I couldn't bring him home, mate.
Yeah.
I could have turned around and said, "No, he's coming," but it wasn't fair.
Yeah, it would have been for you, not for him.
Yeah. And he's still got a bit about him. Last year, like I say, his hips have gone a little bit, and he's sleeping a lot more now. But there was a First Nationer coming down the street, drunk. And shouting at all the people on the street and the neighbours, and Stone's kind of in the backyard, and he's come around the front yard, and the person, our friend who's looking after him, kind of owns him now, but he's in the front yard, and he starts gobbing off to her, and the dog just goes and sits at the end of the drive. Like he's a grey old skinny little bugger now, this dog, but he's still ready to go to protect his flock. So He's still got it. He's still got it, mate.
Yeah.
Didn't leave the property. Didn't bark or anything. Just sat there like, let's go.
Yeah.
But
That's cool. All right. So last year, separate from defence.
This year, mate, August.
This year.
Yep, August.
Fresh.
Yeah. So I came back from overseas last year. Just burnt out. Like I say, all up op deployments, probably 13 or something like that. But then you've got the regional ones, and there's probably 13 of them as well.
Plus,
and that's not exercise. I'm not talking exercises. It's just a long time away from home, courses and whatever, and just the tempo. You're always on call. I don't think I'd had any leave since about 2017.
Yeah, right.
There's none in my book anyway. Probably took a few days here and there, but I was just fucking cooked, mate. So the last probably 9 months, I've just been decompressing.
Yep.
And trying to get my head around being a civvy and what's next.
Being a dad.
Who is SAS? Oh, sorry, not SAS, Andy.
Being a dad.
Yeah, and that's been fantastic. I take the boys to school every morning, and I play football with them in the morning and take them to school, and it's the best part of my day.
Awesome.
I love it, mate. But other than that, I just try and support the guys that are doing it tough right now. And everyone's got their own story. Everyone's got their own issues. Everyone's in some way or another doing it tough. And we were speaking about an individual this morning, and you mentioned something that I didn't know. So everyone's got their own stuff going on.
Yeah.
That's me really, and I like helping people, mate. I get it's selfish if you like, but I like to help people, and just helping not a Sascat raise that money for the kids at Christmas.
Yeah, I saw that. It's doing super well, eh?
Yeah, so use my bank account. So I just managed to transfer $2,500 across.
Awesome.
So 150 gifts, or $150 gifts for 17 kids.
Awesome. That
went out yesterday, and there's another $2,500 coming across today. So I'll transfer that.
That's awesome, mate.
So it's good, mate, and it definitely gives me a good feeling. So that's my immediate future. I think just trying to help people.
Yeah.
And in doing so, help myself.
Yeah. Do you have? Is it going to take a little while for you to kind of feel out your place in the world as civilian Andy?
Yeah, 100%. I still don't know who that is. I'm fucking sat here doing a podcast.
Yeah. Well, hey, you've been in the military since you were 16 years old, really. So,
and that's something I wanted to do, is give back. And I know there's, again, probably a bit of a wanky term that people might think, oh yeah, whatever, you're just doing it to inflate your ego, but that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
I remember I was 13 in cadets, 14 or whatever it was, and the Iraq War went on, and I was watching all the missiles, and I had no idea what was going on behind the lines with British SAS and whatnot. And then listening to the tape cassette, so it wasn't an audio book, it was a tape cassette. I don't think I could read at that stage. But listening to the tape cassette, it just blew my mind. And, that was what got me interested in the army and joining the army and trying out for special forces. So if, I can help someone, or not help, but, you get my point, kind of, I don't know what the word is, but give them the same that I got from that kind of audiobook thing, then great.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah, it comes at a cost, and just don't get politically involved in what you're doing. And try not to buy into the toxic kind of way it can get at times.
Yeah.
Especially in the dog world.
Yeah. I've spoken about this before, but one of the best industries and also one of the worst.
Yeah. I think you had explained to me, and it was when I was on Rio, best job in the worst environment.
Yeah.
That's not always the case. But
Yeah.
just protect yourself mentally and don't buy into the bullshit.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. The Dirty Bearded Pilgrim, Andy White.
That page, whilst there's a lot of pictures of me on there, isn't about me. I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't come across like that. It's trying to support the veteran SAS community and the regiment. Get some good stories out there from guys that have done well in the unit and done well outside of the unit, and it is about supporting guys, and there's not enough of that at the moment, especially coming from SASR. All the guys from SASR, there's people out there doing it tough at the moment. Kind of been thrown to the wolves, and I don't want to go into that, but is a little bit unfair in regards to the treatment they've had without a day in court. So that's what that page is about, is supporting them guys.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly doing that.
Thanks, mate.
Some of those stories are phenomenal.
And there's some phenomenal humans, mate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, good on you.
Not about me, it's about them.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Andy White, 003. Thank you very much.
Catch you.
All right, see ya.